Part of me really wants to be on the set of these nominees for production design because, everything looks so great. But at the same time, part of me does not want to be on these sets because I just know my inner kleptomania is going to awaken. I'm going to steal something. I'm going to end up in jail. So keep me away from these sets. Alright, so it's part 4 of my Oscar coverage, and this time we're talking production design. And as always, as before, I will be talking about my criteria for this category. Number 1, again, adherence to era, like how well this production design matches its era. Number 2, attention to detail, like how detailed the little details, that's redundant, but how detailed everything looks, because it really is in the nitty-gritty that production design succeeds. And of course, again, relevance to the story. I always stress relevance to the story because that's what film is to me. It's a storytelling medium. So for me, every element has to kind of strive to support the story in a way, and the way production design can support the story is by, immersing us into that story. Anyway, let's get to the nominees right now. So the nominees for Best Production Design are American Hustle, Judy Becker, Production Design, and Heather Loeffler, Set Decoration. Gravity, Andy Nicholson, Production Design, and Rosie Goodwin and Joanne Willard for Set Decoration. The Great Gatsby for Catherine Martin, Production Design, and Beverly Dunn, Set Decoration. Her, K.K. Barrett, Production Design, and Gene Sardena, Set Decoration. And 12 Years a Slave, Adam Stockhausen, Production Design, and Alice Baker, Set Decoration. Don't mind the church bells, it's mass time, so, that'll go away in a while, but just bear with it. Alright, so this batch of nominees I think is actually a pretty tough list because they're all really good, they're all very varied, and this will be kind of hard for me to predict, but hopefully I get it right. So again, I will be talking about my picks from 5th place to 1st place about who I think should win this award and then who I think will win. So at number 5, I'm gonna put Gravity because I think this movie really succeeds more because of its visual effects than its actual production design. And this is like a really weird nomination to me because the most tangible aspects of this movie in terms of like set decoration and production design are like the interiors of stuff. And most of this movie is spent outside in space, and there's only so much you can do with the interiors they have in this movie. The insides of little escape pods and shuttles and stuff. This doesn't detract anything from the movie, though. I still think it's amazing. Like, I'm a huge fan of Gravity. It's just that this is a really weird nomination. Like, I wouldn't expect it to get nominated for this of all things. But, as it goes, I guess the production design in the interiors is really, really good. I mean, I'm sure Alfonso Cuarón and the rest did a lot of research on how these things looked. And, it really does a good job of kind of setting you into that place in space. So, yeah, but it ends up in number 5 because it's weird. Okay, at number 4, fourth place will be The Great Gatsby. Again, very good production values, but it's very, very distracting. This is the same problem I have with the costumes. It's that, aesthetically, it does look nice. It's just that it's just too much, man. Like, Daz Luhrmann, like, take a break for a while. Like, there's just so much going on in this movie that it becomes kind of painful to the eyes. But again, I will have to admit that it looks good. I pretty much have the same comments about this that like when I talked about Great Gatsby in terms of costume design. It's that it really does reflect the extravagance of their lifestyle. It does kind of. I just had a thought. It does kind of also reflect like Baz Luhrmann's personality. It's very boom. It's very fireworks, fireworks. There is a lot of attention to detail here. I will also again admit. But I'm not exactly sure how much of this is real because there are lots of shots where you can tell it's green screen, where you can tell that if the characters are interacting in one space, like everything around them isn't necessarily there. So I'm not sure how much of this movie to attribute to production design necessarily, but I guess it still ends up at 4th place because Gravity didn't really have that much to work with. So alright, number 3, I will put American Hustle. Now this is very subtle production design. Again, like I mentioned before, this movie doesn't really hit you in the face that, oh, you're in the 70s. It really just kind of eases you in. And what I like is that the production design from place to place is very consistent. While you don't necessarily get this big sense of place, because that's not really what the movie is about, it does really give you the impression that everything is, really in the same universe. Like, everything looks like it's from the 70s, and everything looks like it has the same kind of personality, if so to speak. And again, unlike The Great Gatsby, it shows extravagance without it being like suffocating and distracting. It shows the extravagant lifestyle, but at the same time being sort of empty at the same time. But again, that's not really the focus of the story. As good as the production design here is, it's not necessarily Oscar worthy in my opinion, so that's why it ends up at number 3. Okay, now these last two, like, they could tie in my opinion. Like, they are so drastically different, but they both do production design so well, and it's so hard to pick who was gonna go for first, but I ended up with this order, so at second place, I'm gonna put her. Her among the nominees has like the most unique and minimalist style. Like, it's very, there's lots of shapes and stuff, and it's very, color. It's all very clean, which is what I really like, because this movie really pulls off the near future vibe. Now, when a lot of movies try to go for the near future vibe, it ends up being a bit too distant in the future. But I think her plays it really safe, because the only thing futuristic really is like the little technology about, the OSs and just communication and all that stuff. So like the production design really feels like it's kind of in transition from our own modern times to a more futuristic place, and thus, I really did think that reflected the era in a very interesting way. And again, I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into it, but I do think that the production design here has relevance to the story, because this movie is ultimately about, how hard it is to communicate to fellow human beings. And when you look at all the environments in this movie, it's all very empty, and not necessarily empty, but when there are people in it, they're always talking to their OSs, or they're, talking on the phone and stuff. And again, it's very clean, it's very hollow. That's the right word. It's very hollow, and at the same time, that kind of does reflect, I think, how the main character Theodore feels about stuff. So I don't know if that's too much, close reading, but hey, like, I enjoyed it. Okay, and at number 1, I'm gonna put 12 Years a Slave. Now, this is extremely subtle production design, because it never, like, you never get a shot that just says this is, the 19th century or something, and this is slavery. No, it's just very much focused on its characters, but at the same time, the production design really, really, like, you really see it. It really immerses you. Like I said about the costume design of 12 Years a Slave, this movie is not afraid to get things dirty, and things get really dirty here. I mean, not dirty as in like what you're thinking, but, muddy and, just bloody and stuff. Again, this movie really does put you into the era, and the best compliment I can give a movie in regards to production design is that at times it doesn't feel like you're watching a movie anymore. It really does feel like you're there, because it just really gets under your skin. And again, this movie isn't really focused on the environment and the costumes and the makeup and stuff, but the level of immersion it achieves is just so strong. So I'm not really sure, like, her is like just edging over 12 Years a Slave in some aspects, but in the end, 12 Years a Slave ends up as first, just because it really transports you to a time that not everyone is comfortable talking about. Thus, seeing it like this so raw is so affecting. Alright, so in regards to my prediction of who I think will win the Oscar, again, it's so difficult. Like, I really think American Hustle stands a good chance. I think Her, again, stands a good chance. I'm gonna have to go with my own pick, 12 Years a Slave. I'm just gonna really put my faith in it, because I was kind of surprised last year, Lincoln won Best Production Design. I was going for something else, and like, I think the Academy's mind works like, the more subtle it is, the more likely to win. So I'm just gonna go for 12 Years a Slave. Again, I really don't think Gravity is gonna get this. Great Gatsby, like I keep saying, was a critical failure. Her, unfortunately, as good as I think it is, I don't think it's, well loved enough by the Academy, because I really think it's snubbed in a lot of things. But, just because of that, I think 12 Years, which is like the darling now, is probably gonna win it. Alright, so what do you guys think about this year's nominees for Best Production Design? Who do you think is gonna win? Who do you think should win? Who do you think will win? Now, whatever you think, whether you agree with my picks or if you disagree, please leave a comment and let's have a conversation.